I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win this game. It's at home. The Eagles have played some close games. I think they were fortunate, obviously, to win last week. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL, the show that covers the NFL statistical leaders from the all-time greats to the current players leading the NFL. I'm Ernie Jennings, your host, and today we will wrap up part 2 of our look at week game 4s coming up. We'll also take a look at Thursday night's game between Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. So we're back into another weekend of football. It's always exciting. I enjoy it. So try not to take too long because there's a lot of games to cover. So we'll get right into it, and we'll start with the Thursday night game. And if you happen to watch it, if you went to bed early because the Cardinals looked terrible, you missed a good game. In the last 5-6 minutes, the Cardinals came back and tied the game at 20-20 with only 28 seconds left in the game. And the Seahawks were able to come down partly on a bad kickoff where the kicker didn't get it into the drop zone, and the Seahawks got started at the 40-yard line. That was a big mistake right there. They had a couple of timeouts. They moved far enough to get within 50-plus yards for the field goal. With just 4 seconds to go, kicked the field goal and won it 23-20. But I tell you, Murray came through in the last 5 minutes with a couple of touchdowns, and so did Marvin Harrison. He had not looked good early, and if you watched him as I was like, this guy, I don't know what's wrong, but he's not running the right routes. He's not catching the ball when he has a chance. But he made a spectacular catch in the end zone for a touchdown, and then later he made another big catch on the sideline that kept the Cardinals in the game. So he did come through later in the game, as did Murray, who didn't look particularly good either and up until the last few minutes of the game. So it ended up being a fun game to watch, exciting after the first 3.5 quarters, and it didn't look too good especially for the Arizona Cardinals. But all right, let's take a look at the game. It ended up, actually, Seattle really dominated, and surprisingly, they only won by 3. They had a total net yards of 384 yards to 253 for Arizona. Looking at a couple other stats here, and we'll get into the quarterbacks. But one other stat as far as teams go, the Seahawks had the ball for over 32 minutes, Arizona about 27 and a half minutes. So a decent advantage there. But they both had the same amount of total plays. Other than that, though, Seattle looked much better for the most part in this game. All right, now looking at some of the stats, let's start with the quarterbacks here. Sam Darnold was 18 completions on 26 attempts for 242 yards, 1 touchdown. And then Kyler Murray was 27 completions on 41 attempts for 200 yards. So 9 more attempts and 42 less yards. So he really was a lot of that dinking and dunking, and we'll look at that. He had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Not a good game until, like I said, toward the end when he started throwing the ball farther down the field. But in this game, he had 13 completions on 15 attempts behind the line of scrimmage. So they dumped the ball off a lot. And that accounted for, 78 yards of the total 200 yards were passes behind the line of scrimmage. So it really wasn't good. And he had 1 for 3 on passes over 20 yards. And then he was 4 out of 12 on passes over 10 yards. So really not very good. And some of those were horrific. And I'm assuming that it was Harrison's fault on a couple of them where he cut to the inside. Kyler Murray threw it toward the sideline, and it was just a complete miscommunication. I don't know that for a fact that it was Harrison or what the case was, but something you notice with Murray is he tends to throw a lot of passes, especially the deeper passes, as he's falling backwards. But I don't know if it was just pressure, and he goes down at the drop of a hat on pressure. He's so fast. He had a huge run late in that game that kept him in the game, but otherwise he does not want to take a hit, that's for sure, which is just as well. Now, Sam Darnold, on the other hand, unlike Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, like I said, who had 15 passes behind the line of scrimmage, Seattle had only 3 out of their 18 completions behind the line of scrimmage. They did try to get the ball down the field, and from 10 to 20 yards, they were 5 out of 6. So they really was impressive right there. And then over 20 yards, they were 2 out of 3. So they did push the ball down there when they had a chance. So they had 7 of their completions, 7 out of 18 were on passes over 10 yards. All right, one more stat on the quarterbacks here. Let's see. Sam Darnold had a quarterback rating of 111.4. Now, Kyler Murray, those 2 interceptions, one was definitely his fault. The other one was one of those that made you cringe with Harrison. It hit him in the hands. He starts to, you think he has the ball, and then as he's turning to head upfield, he's looking before he actually has the ball completely in his hands. It bobbles it. The defender just catches it out of the midair as Harrison's also trying to catch it. The defender for Seattle grabs it, and that's an interception accounted against Murray, but really it wasn't his fault. Now, Murray was also sacked 6 times, though, for 36 yards. So he had a quarterback rating of 73.2. All right, let's look at some of the other players in this game for the rushing. If you were hoping for Benson to have a big game, he didn't really, unfortunately for him and for Arizona, and if you had him on your fantasy team. Kyler Murray, 5 carries for 41 yards, but one was a long 29-yarder. That was the big one. Benson, 8 carries, 35 yards. He did average 4.38, and I don't know what happened, but late in the game, DeMarcado came in and played almost the rest of the last 5 or 6 games, and I guess he comes in there in passing modes. Must be the case. Even though Benson had 5 catches for 19 yards, while DeMarcado had 2 catches for 13 yards. One was a touchdown, and then Marvin Harrison also had the other touchdown. So I'm not sure what's the running situation going to be. I mean, they only ran the ball 17 times. Murray had 5 of those. So I don't know what the rushing situation is going to be going into next week. Looking at the receivers for Arizona, McBride did lead the team, 7 catches, only 52 yards. He was targeted 11 times. Harrison, 6 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. He was targeted 10 times. So they were by far the 2 leading receivers. Coming out of the backfield, like I said, Benson had 5 catches, 19 yards on 5 targets. Wilson had 3 catches for 15 yards. He was targeted 6 times. So those are your top, as well as Dortch, 4 catches, 35 yards, targeted 5 times. So those are your top as far as that goes. Now, looking at Seattle in the running game, Walker really looked good. And he had 19 carries, 81 yards, no touchdowns though. But he did look much better, I thought, than Charbonneau. Walker's so fast. Charbonneau, 12 carries, 39 yards, only 3.25 yards per carry. But he did have the touchdown run. So it seemed like Walker looked much better, but then down at the end zone line, Charbonneau did get it. And that's a little surprising because there was a 4th down play that they did not get when they handed it off. They needed a yard, handed it to Charbonneau. He did not make it. So I don't know that he's that much better than Walker when it comes to short yardage, but that's the way they're playing it right now. Looking at the receivers, wow, well, Smith-Njigba did come through late in the game. He was held to only 4 catches on 5 targets, but he had 79 yards, and he did pull in a nice, when they were trying to move down the field, he did have a 36-yard pass which really boosted his numbers because really wasn't the best game for him. Cooper Kupp also had 4 catches for 26 yards on 5 targets, so they were targeted equally. Now, the tight end, who you just don't know where these touchdowns come, and same with Seattle. Who's going to catch the touchdown? I mean, same with Arizona. But Barner, their tight end, 3 catches, 32 yards, and he did have the touchdown reception. So those are your top players. As far as the running backs go, Walker had 1 catch for 29 yards, and Charbonneau had 2 catches for only 5 yards. So honestly, Walker had touched the ball 20 times and had 110 yards total. So pretty decent game for him. All right, now looking at the defenses, we'll look at Arizona's defense. As far as interceptions, well, they had no interceptions. They did sack the quarterback, Darnold, 3 times. That was the best they were able to do. Looking at Seattle, and then we'll come back at tackles in a minute. But for Seattle, they did have 2 interceptions, one by Jones, returned at 29 yards. He had a decent game, 8 tackles, 4 solo. He had half a sack as well. Witherspoon also had 9 tackles, 5 solo, and a half a sack. Big game for him. Now, Nwasu had 5 total tackles. He had 2 sacks in this game. So big game for him. And the same with Williams, 4 tackles and 1.5 sacks. So they did get to the quarterback 6 times, and they had 2 interceptions in this game. So decent for them in this game. All right. Looking at one more stat here we'll look at real quick on defense for Seattle. As far as tackles for loss, Nwasu had 2 tackles for loss. So good game for him. And then for Arizona, as far as tackles for loss go, Robinson had 2 tackles for loss. Calais Campbell had a big game, decent game for him, I should say. He had 2 tackles for loss. And he went out later in the game. I don't know how bad the injury was. He ran off on his own cognition, but I don't know how bad it was. It looked like maybe a stinger. We'll find out after sometime this week, probably. All right, that is a look at that game. Arizona loses 23-20 at home. Tough game for them, but Seattle, they definitely looked like the better team. All right, moving on now to the games coming up. We've got one more 1:00 game that we weren't able to get to, and we'll get to it now. Let me get this where we want it. Let's see here. And that's the Philadelphia Eagles at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is a big game. That should be a good game to watch. Both of them are 3-0. Right now, Tampa Bay Buccaneers lead this series 13-11. But the Eagles are favored. Even though it is in Tampa, the Eagles are favored by 3.5 points. So we'll see what happens. Right now, as far as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go in top 10s, Todd Bowles needs 1 win. He's got 30 right now. 1 win. He'll tie Bruce Arians for 4th for most coaching wins by a Tampa Bay Buccaneer coach. So 1 more win, he'll move into a tie for 4th. John Gruden right now is the leader all time with 57 wins. Another top 10 is Baker Mayfield. Needs 280 yards exactly. He'll tie Steve DeBerg for 8th all-time in passing yards by quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So 280 yards, that's definitely something that would be possible for him in this game. 281, he moves into 8th all by himself. Another stat that Baker Mayfield's chasing down is passing touchdowns. In this instance, he's 5th all-time right now with 75. Vinny Testaverde has 77, so he needs 2 to tie Vinny Testaverde for 4th, 3 to move into 4th all-time by himself. Jameson Winston has 121 touchdowns to lead the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that category. And then the great Lavonte David right now. And this is tackles for loss, but this is an NFL record we're talking about, not just a team record. But Lavonte David has 171 tackles for loss. That puts him 7th all-time in NFL history. Von Miller is 6th with 172. So he needs one to tie. They both had one last week, so he needs one to tie, maybe even just to keep up, 2 to pass Von Miller, depending on what Von Miller does. Terrell Suggs leads in this category all time with the only player over 200. He has 202 tackles for loss. Those are the top 10s for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As far as key injuries, Chris Godwin's expected to play. He had that ankle injury that's kept him out all season so far, but he has been practicing and he is planning to play, which is good because Evans, I don't believe, will be playing. So they will definitely need him coming in at just the right time. Now, looking at the Eagles, who are also 3-0, top 10s for them. Jalen Hurts continues to move up the list. He's 7th all-time in passing touchdowns with 88. Tommy Thompson 6th with 90. So he needs 2 to tie Tommy Thompson for 6th place, 3 to move into 6th all by himself. Tommy Thompson played in the 40s, so he's been on this list a while. Donovan McNabb right now, who played, from 1999 to 2009, has the most, 216 passing touchdowns as a Philadelphia Eagle. Another one, and that is Dallas Goedert's number 10 all-time in receptions for the Eagles. Mike Quick is number 9. He played in the 80s. Mike Quick has 363 receptions. Dallas Goedert has 357. So he needs 6 to tie, 7 to move into 9th by himself. Harold Carmichael, who played in the 70s, early 80s, has 589 receptions to lead the Eagles in this category. Now, Goddard won't hold this for long because you do have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith moving up much faster in all the receiving categories than Dallas Goedert is. But I just wanted to list something here that just was interesting to me if you like stats. And that right now, as far as yards receiving go, A.J. Brown is 13th, Dallas Goedert is 14th, and Devontae Smith is 15th. It's just interesting that they are all, and their numbers are all within 35 yards of each other. A.J. Brown has 4,175 yards receiving. Goddard has 4,162, and Devontae Smith has 4,140. So they're all within 35 yards of each other. It's just an interesting stat. I found it fascinating to see 3 players all playing right now, back to back to back like that as far as yards. Now, this is going to spread out. Dallas Goedert will fall behind, especially behind Brown and even behind Smith. Even after this game, this won't happen again, but for me, it was just a fascinating little thing. All right, key injuries in this game, none as far as the Eagles go. So looking at this game here, it's a close one. Right now, the Eagles average 25.7 points per game, but they proved that they can score if they need to. Otherwise, they can play a much slower type game. The Buccaneers are averaging 24 points a game, so pretty close there. Now, an area where Buccaneers are a little worse off, and that's in penalties. They're 23rd. They've had 26 penalties already, so almost 9 a game. The Eagles aren't great either, but more middle of the pack. They've had 20 penalties in 3 games. So pretty close. Now looking at some of the offense and defense here. For the Eagles, right now their offense is ranked 21st as far as passing efficiency. So despite the amount of passing last week, they had 200 yards of passing in the second half alone. In the first half, they did next to nothing. But they're 21st against the defense, which is 14th for the Buccaneers against the pass. So could be a little bit more difficult for the Eagles in this game as far as that goes. Now, even in the rushing department, the Eagles are 4th right now. Some of that comes not just off of Barkley, but also on Hurts, who racks up his own amount of yards himself, but they're fourth. But the Buccaneers defense is pretty good against the rush. They're number 7. So that's, again, very close. Now, looking at the Buccaneers as far as their offense, they're 8th in passing efficiency, but the Eagles are pretty decent there. They're 10th against the pass, so fairly even. Now, where Tampa Bay has a little bit of an edge, and that's in the rushing game. They're 10th right now, where the defense for the Eagles is 22nd. So that could be a little bit of an edge for the Buccaneers. Now, let me look up one more thing here real quick, and that is we want to look at the fantasy numbers in this game. And for this game particularly, let me find it here on this listing. Well, looking at the quarterbacks. All right, let's look at the quarterbacks here. Well, obviously you're going to probably start Jalen Hurts. He's number 5 quarterback right now. He's already had 65 points, basically. He's had 1 top 5 and 2 top 12 games. Now, this isn't on his arm so much as on his legs. I mean, he's already rushed for 117 yards, but the key for him is in the running game, he's already has 4 touchdowns. The lead quarterback, probably leads the NFL almost as far as rushing touchdowns go. So he may not get you the yards through the air. He can, but he's going to get them on the ground. So he's somebody you're going to definitely want to start. The same goes for Baker Mayfield. He's 9th right now. He's averaging 60 points a game, so not much difference, 5 points less. He's had 2 top 12 weeks. Now for him, he's also rushed for 116 yards, so he's racking up some yards as well. No touchdowns, though. So that's a big difference. But he does have 6 touchdown passes and no interceptions versus Hurts, who only has 3. So they basically almost are a wash. 7 touchdowns total for Hurts, 6 for Baker Mayfield. And in, like, say, my PPR league, it doesn't matter whether he's throwing it or running it. I know in some leagues, a passing touchdown may be only 4 points, so it could be a little bit of a difference. So those quarterbacks, you're definitely going to want to play both of them, whoever you might have. All right, looking at the running backs in this game. Again, you have some really good running backs here. Get them up here. All right. Interestingly, like I said, you want to start Hurts. Not a running back officially, but he plays like, he does enough scoring that he's worth it. Saquon Barkley right now is 14th right in the NFL in rushing, but he has had 2 top 12 weeks and 2 top 24s. So I do expect to see him have a better game. He's getting his points, not just on the ground, but through the air, but he hasn't had a big game yet. So I think there's time he will have a big game sooner or later here. So I would definitely, you can't not start him. You picked him in the top few players, so you're going to start him. Now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, looking at their running back situation. Well, it's Irving and Rachaad White. You're not going to play him. He has had a top 24, but you're not going to play him unless you absolutely had to. Bucky Irving right now is 11th. No rushing touchdowns, though, which is a little surprising, but he has had 1 top 12 week and 3 top 24s. So every week he's going to be consistently up there, so you're going to want to start him. I'm still expecting a decent game out of him as well. He's averaged, you'd like to see him at the 18. He had 18 points against the Texans, but he has had 14 against the Jets and 14.5 against the Falcons. So he hasn't had a bad game. He's been very consistent, so you can count on that. They're going to give him the ball as much as they can. So I would want to start both the wide receivers as well. Now, looking at both the running backs. Looking at the wide receivers, well, you're going to start, I actually don't like to start the Eagles receivers. I haven't been much for them just because of the fact that they'll put that running game in. They won't throw the ball. Devontae Smith right now is 35th wide receiver. He's had 1 top 12 game. so far this season. So he'd be no better for me than a flex position type player. I think that would be the most I would want to do. Now, A.J. Brown finally had a big game last week. He's ranked number 39, but I don't expect to see him stay there. He had a top 12 last week. So you want to see more. I mean, the first game he had 1.8 points. Against the Chiefs, he had 7.7. But then last week against the Rams, 22.9. Big difference. 6 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, the first 2 games combined, he only had a total of 35 yards. So I would play him in this game because I don't expect the Buccaneers to go down without a fight. So you would expect to see this game to have some points in it, which it's going to force the Eagles to have to throw the ball. And if they do, Brown's going to be the primary recipient. Now, looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as far as receiving goes, you have Mike Evans, but he's not going to play. And it's unfortunate. He got hurt in that game, so I'm not expecting to see him playing. But for the Buccaneers, you also have, let me find him. Do have Sterling Shepard. He's number 53. But right now, the key player is Emeka Egbuka, the rookie. He's 10th right now. He's only got one top 12 week so far, but he's been pretty good. 23.6 points against the Falcons, and then 13 against the Texans and 14.5 against the Jets. So he's at least had 13 points in every game. Now with Evans out, Godwin's coming back, but how much will he play? I expect to see a big game out of Egbuka, so I would definitely be playing him. Now, as far as the tight ends go, do you want to start either one of them? Not really. I don't think so. They're not as big a part of the game for these two teams, at least not right now. You just can't count on Goddard. I mean, he is the guy, but I'm not going to count on him to be a part of this game in any way big. And for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you have Cade Otton. He's 59th. He's only got 3 catches for 25 yards so far. So you're not going to play him. So those tight ends, I don't think I'm going to play them. So I do expect to see this game's going to be close. It's in Tampa Bay. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win this game. It's at home. The Eagles have played some close games. I think they were fortunate, obviously, to win last week. And I just don't know honestly, how good their offense is at this point in time. So we'll see. All right. Next game up, these are 4:00 games now. And this is the Indianapolis Colts at the Los Angeles Rams. All right. In this game, you've got Indianapolis Colts lead the series very close, 23 games to 22 with 2 ties. So Rams win, they could tie this up all the way around. And they are favored by 3.5 points. It's in Los Angeles. The Colts have had to go up to Philadelphia. They've been traveling some, I should say that. But they do have to go across the country to play against the Rams, which is always difficult. The Rams came off a rough game in Philadelphia. They should have won that game. So do they take out their frustration on the Colts? We'll see. But so the Rams are 2-1. Looking at top 10s for the Rams. Matthew Stafford right now is 7th all-time in touchdown passes for the Rams with 100 exactly. Kurt Warner's next up for him, who's 6th with 102. So he needs 2 touchdown passes to tie, 3 to move into 6th all by himself. Now, if he could play one more season, he might catch number 1 Roman Gabriel for 154 passing TDs. He played in 1962 to 1972 for the Rams. Another category for top 10, Kyren Williams is trying to move into the top 10. He just needs 1 rushing touchdown to move into a tie for 10th with Dick Horner and Roman Gabriel, the quarterback again. So just 1 touchdown to move into a tie, 2 to move to 10th all by himself. Marshall Faulk leads this category with 58 rushing touchdowns. Now, another top 10 is Tyler Higbee, their tight end for the Rams. He's got 365 receptions. That's good enough for 9th for the Rams. Robert Woods, who played from 2016 to 2021, has 367. So just 2 receptions for Higbee to tie for 8th, 3 to move into 8th all by himself. Isaac Bruce leads this category with 942 receptions. As far as that goes, Davante Adams is injured with a hamstring issue. He hasn't been able to practice at all. So he's beginning to look a little bit doubtful. So somebody to watch. Now the Colts are also 3-0. So both of these teams 3-0. This is going to break that and drop the teams that are undefeated down 1 less at least. In this game, top 10s, Michael Pittman trying to move into the top 10. He needs a big game to do it. Roger Carr is 10th all-time in receiving yards. He played from 1974 to 1981, a while back. But he's got 4,770 yards. So Michael Pittman needs 107 yards to tie him, 107 receiving yards. It's possible, definitely possible, especially after the game he had last week. Now for them, it looks like wide receiver Alec Pierce is not going to play. He had a concussion. He hasn't made it through the protocol yet. So he looks like he's doubtful for this game. All right, looking at the fantasy numbers for this game, looking at the quarterbacks, this has been somewhat surprising. You might want to start Daniel Jones. He's the 4th-ranked quarterback right now. He's thrown for over 800 yards so far, as well as rushing for 3 touchdowns. He's looked very impressive. I mean, I would probably definitely start him. How could you not, really? And they may be playing from behind as well. But he's looked really good so far. I also think, though, Matthew Stafford is a little different. You might want to start Stafford, though for him, you're not getting anything out of the running game at all. In fact, it's a detriment. But he has thrown 5 touchdown passes. I think he's more of a, if you have to play him, you would play him. This could be a game with some points in it, so there's a possibility he has a decent game. But you definitely want to start Jones and maybe Stafford if you really have to. Looking at the running backs, well, you're going to start Jonathan Taylor. He's number 1 running back right now. He's averaging about 100 almost 113 yards a game. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns. He's been in the top 12 twice, top 24 every game. He's a definite start. He leads the NFL with 75 fantasy points. Next up is Christian McCaffrey with 70, rounding up to 70. So he's really been impressive so far this year. Now, for the Rams, you're going to probably start Kyren Williams. He's had 1 top 12, 2 top 24s. Not as impressive right now, but you definitely want to start him. He's a decent running back, and he has had 2 pretty good weeks. So I'm going to start both those running backs if I have the chance. As far as the wide receivers go, this is a little more difficult. I would start Michael Pittman. He's 13th right now. He's had 1 top 12, 2 top 24 games so far, but he had a really good game last week. I think that he's went every other game. Dallas against the Dolphins. I'm sorry, not the Dallas, but against the Dolphins, he had 20 fantasy points. He's had no fewer than 5 targets his way, no fewer than 4 catches, and he's had 6 in the other 2 games. So, and he's had 2 touchdowns in 2 games. So he is the primary man for this team, probably the only wide receiver I'm going to start for the Colts. Now, obviously, you're going to start Puka Nacua. 3 top 12s in 3 games. He's got 29 receptions already. And just as Taylor has been doing in the running game, Puka Nacua is doing in the passing game. He's averaging 111 yards a game. So you're definitely starting him. So those two receivers I'm going to start. Devontae Adams, I don't think is playing, so you can't start him. He's had a good season as well. 1 top 12, 2 top 24s. He gets the touchdown passes. But you have to watch if you want to start him. I don't think he's playing. Those are really the top wide receivers. Now, looking at the tight ends, I did mention Higbee, but as far as tight ends go, Tyler Warren, you're going to probably start. He's 8th right now. He's got 1 top 5, 2 top 12s. And I do think this is a game where the Colts did have a game where they kind of sat everybody late in the game, which hurt some of the numbers. But I do think he'll be out there the whole time, so he's definitely a start as far as tight ends go. On the other hand, you're probably not going to start Higbee, or Davis Allen actually is even the receiver that's caught more, but he's only had 3 catches for 24 yards. So their tight ends are not used the same way. I do think in this game that the Rams win the game. It's at home, and we'll just see how good Daniel Jones is against some really. This is the toughest game he's had so far. We'll see how it goes. And I do think there's something to be said for the Rams really being ticked off at giving up that game to the Eagles, and they may take it out on the Colts. Next game, Jacksonville Jaguars at the San Francisco 49ers. Another team, Jaguars, have to travel across country to San Francisco. San Francisco leads this series 5-2, and they are favored by 3.5 points. They are undefeated. So by smoke and mirrors, they've been able to do it. Right now, you're looking at Brock Purdy, his toe, but he is maybe going to play. Matt Jones, the other quarterback, Mac Jones, has a toe issue. And I mean, not a toe. He's got a knee issue. So I don't know how he's doing. So neither quarterback is in the best of shape is what I'm trying to say. And for Jawan Jennings, still has ankle shoulder issues. They thought he might play this week, the wide receiver for San Francisco, but he hasn't practiced yet. So there's a good possibility he may not play. And obviously Kittle's still out. And then they lost Nick Bosa on defense. So they've had some, as I've said every week, their injury situations against some key players is amazingly bad for them. They had no top 10s to talk about. Now the Jacksonville Jaguars are 2 wins, 1 loss. Top 10s for them. Trevor Lawrence is still trying to pass Mark Brunell in rushing touchdowns. They're both tied for 9th right now with 14 rushing touchdowns, 1 more, and Trevor Lawrence moves into 9th all by himself. Maurice Jones-Drew heads up this category with 68 rushing touchdowns. In the sack department, you've got a couple of players here, 3 of them, honestly, in the top 10. They're playing right now for the Jaguars. Tony Brackens, who played from 1996 to 2003, is the all-time leader in sacks with 55. Josh Hines Allen had a half a sack last week. He's got 53.5, so he needs 1.5 sacks to tie Tony Brackens for first all-time, 2 to move into first by himself. He's already the tackle for loss leader for the Jaguars. And then moving down the list farther, Trayvon Walker needs 2.5 sacks. He'd have to have a big game to move in from 9th to 8th. He'd tie Kevin Hardy for 8th all-time. And then in 10th right now is Dwayne Smoot. He needs 1.5 sacks to tie Trayvon Walker for 9th. So there's all those players in the top 10. That's assuming that Trayvon Walker wouldn't get a sack. But they're all in the top 10, which is nice to see for your team. No key injuries for the Jaguars. Now, looking at the fantasy numbers here, you're not going to start. I would not start either quarterback, no matter who it is. I mean, Purdy's a good quarterback. I just wouldn't want to start him if he's still a little bit injured. I just don't know. And if Mac Jones is the quarterback. He's the 24th ranked quarterback. He had one top 12 game. That's it. He's played 2 games, but I'm not comfortable starting him really. He's had 4 touchdowns to 1 interception, so that's not too bad. He's somebody you might have to, if you have to start him. Purdy would be the guy if he'd been playing all season, but I'm not going to start him either. And then as far as Trevor Lawrence goes, probably not going to start him either. He has not had a top 12 week yet. He definitely needs one. His issue, 4 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions. So you're not going to start either quarterback most likely. Looking at the running back situation for these 2 teams, well, you're definitely going to start Christian McCaffrey, who is catching as many passes as he's rushing for. It has equal yards. Right now, he's number 2 running back in the NFL, only behind Jonathan Taylor. He's had 3 top 12 weeks, so you've definitely figured to see him up there. Now for the Jaguars, you have Travis Etienne. He's number 10 right now. He's had 1 top 12, and he has been in the top 24 every week this season so far. So you want to start him as well. It's still a work in progress for Tootin at some point if he starts to cut into Etienne, but I think at this point, it's still Etienne is the guy. So you're going to start both those running backs. Now looking at the wide receivers for this game. For the 49ers, Pearsall has had a decent season so far, and he's really the only receiver at this point in time until these other guys get back for the 49ers. But he's 17th ranked wide receiver. He's had 1 top 12, 2 top 24. So he has had a couple of decent games. And the Jaguars have been pretty good against the pass so far this season, but I might start Pearsall as a flex spot or my second wide receiver if you have to. Now, as far as the Jaguars go, right now, Brian Thomas has not performed up to par. He had 1 big catch last week, but I'm not starting any Jaguars until they learn how to catch the ball. They lead the NFL in drops right now with 13. It's terrible, the drop situation. So you just don't have anybody that's standing out yet. You hope that at some point Thomas will, but right now he's definitely not. And so we'll just have to wait and see on that. Now, looking at the tight ends for these 2 teams, well, sadly, if you're a 49er fan, Kittle's not playing, so there's not really a tight end you want to start there. But for the Jaguars, Brenton Strange is a good start, I think. He's been the only receiver so far for the Jaguars that's not dropping the passes. Right now, he's the 16th ranked tight end. He's had 1 top 12, but you could see him focused a little bit more. He's got 13 receptions on 16 targets for 137 yards. No touchdowns yet, but so that's another thing that could change. So if you need a tight end, Brenton Strange would be your guy. Now, I'm going to be a homer here, you might say, but I'm picking the Jaguars to win this game against the 49ers. And a lot of it has to do with the 49ers. Like I said, their 3 wins have been incredible. But in this last one, it was very close again. And then they lost Nick Bosa as well. So they don't have a fully healthy quarterback. And if it is Mac Jones, he played for the Jaguars last week, or last season, I should say. So I think that the Jaguars will know his tendencies. If it's Purdy, I think he's still hurt. Then they don't have Kittle. They don't have any other wide receivers besides Pearsall. And they lost Nick Bosa on defense. I mean, this is just if you want to win a game all the way across country, this is the time to do it when the other team is in such disarray as far as injuries go. So I'm picking the Jaguars to win that game. Next game up, a very interesting game as well. The Baltimore Ravens at the Kansas City Chiefs. In this game, Kansas City Chiefs lead the series 9-5, but the Baltimore Ravens, despite it being in Kansas City, are favored by 2.5 points. Kansas City Chiefs are 1-2. Looking at some top 10s for this team. Patrick Mahomes, as far as sacks goes, he's number 4 all time in being sacked for the Kansas City Chiefs with 190. He's got 2 players in his sights. At number 2 is Bill Kenny, played in the 80s with 195 sacks. And then Alex Smith, who he took over from, is in third with 192. So anywhere from 2 to 5 sacks, he's going to move up in this list. Len Dawson has the record. He played in the 60s and 70s. He has 372 sacks. So that's a negative number for Patrick Mahomes, which one he does not want to get. Looking at rushing TDs, another top 10. Kareem Hunt's number 9 all time with 23. Mike Garrett's number 8, played in the 60s. He's got 24 rushing touchdowns. So he needs 1 to tie, 2 to move into 8th by himself. Priest Holmes leads this category with 76 rushing touchdowns. A couple of more. Tackles for loss, always one of the popular ones. Nick Bolton's trying to make it into the top 10. He's looking at John Browning, who's 10th with 35, and Nick Bolton has 34. So he just needs 1 to tie, 2 to move into 10th all-time in tackles for loss. Tamba Hall leads this category with 105 tackles for loss. And then one more, pretty good, another category for Travis Kelce. Already leads in all the receiving categories. But right now he's 6th all-time in scoring for the Kansas City Chiefs with 496 points. Priest Holmes is 5th with 500. So 1 touchdown reception, or however he gets the touchdown for Travis Kelce, that's 6 points. That puts him into 5th all-time for the Kansas City Chiefs. Nick Lowry, who played in the 80s and 90s, has 1,466 points. Now, key injuries for the Chiefs. Xavier Worthy has a shoulder. He was out 2 weeks, but he's supposed to be back, and we'll see how effective and how helpful he'll be for the Chiefs. Now, the Baltimore Ravens are also 1-2. A couple of top 10s for them, several. Rashad Bateman in receiving touchdowns has 14. He's trying to move into the top 10. He's 11th right now. Travis Taylor, who played in the early 2000s, has 15. So he needs 1 to tie Travis Taylor. If he happened to get 2, he'd move into a tie with Jermaine Lewis for 9th with 16. So Rashad Bateman's trying to move into the top 10 in receiving touchdowns. Now, Derrick Henry, on the other hand, on the NFL level in rushing touchdowns, he's 6th all-time in NFL history with 109 rushing TDs. Number 5 is the great Walter Payton with 110 rushing TDs. So he needs 1 to tie Walter Payton, 2 to move into 5th all-time by himself. Emmitt Smith leads with 164 rushing touchdowns. On defense, Marlon Humphrey needs 1 interception to move into a tie for 4th with Dwayne Starks and Rod Woodson. So he's looking at that. And then Nnamdi Madubuike is tied for 10th with 42 tackles for loss. 1 more, he'll catch C.J. Mosley for 9th, and 2, he'll move into 9th all by himself. And then in the scoring front, again, another non-kicker here. Lamar Jackson needs 1 score. He's 9th all-time in scoring with 206 points. Willis McGahee is 8th with 210. So a touchdown by Lamar Jackson, and he moves into 8th all-time by himself. Key injuries here is not an injury. Well, it was Isaiah Likely, the tight end, had a foot injury. He's been out the first 3 games. He may return. So that would be an additional help for the Ravens. We'll see if that happens. Looking at these 2 teams, well, right now the Chiefs are averaging 20 points a game. The Ravens are averaging 37. That's first in the NFL. They're averaging 37 points, and they're 1 win, 2 losses. That's not good. So that's huge. Looking at the offenses, the passing game for the Ravens is number 3 and against the number 12 passing defense of Kansas City. So definite advantage for the Ravens In the running game, it's pretty much a wash. They're 16th ranked rushing team, the Ravens are, which is disappointing, honestly, for a team that has Henry and Jackson. So I expect actually to see that number start to improve as the season goes on. The rushing defense for Kansas City is middle of the pack. They're 17th. So that's pretty close. I think it's, again, offensively, it's definitely an advantage for the Ravens over the Chiefs. Now, looking at the offense for Kansas City, the passing game, they're number 16th, middle of the pack, but so is the defense for the Ravens. It's number 17. So middle of the pack there as well. And then in the running game, and this is all because of, it's hard to judge this, but it's all because of Mahomes. They're 7th in rushing against one of the worst defenses against the rush for the Ravens. They're 31st. So definitely an advantage for Kansas City, but it's not a typical rushing type of situation. It's more by the scrambles. So, it's hard to judge how you want to call that rushing defense against that type of a play. But that is an advantage for Kansas City. Now, in this game, I do think the Ravens will win it. And this is amazing because you are talking about two teams that are their goal is Super Bowl. It's a bust if they don't make it to the Super Bowls. Kansas City keeps going, but one of them is going to be 1-3. And if you fall to 1-3, your road to the Super Bowl becomes a lot more difficult. So one of these teams is going to have a rough go of it the rest of the year. So I'm picking the Baltimore Ravens to win this game. Next up, Chicago Bears. Wait, I should back up. I didn't look at the fantasy numbers, did I? Let's look at that. Looking at the quarterbacks, well, obviously you're going to start Lamar Jackson, number one quarterback by far in the NFL. He's had almost 83 points in fantasy football right now. Josh Allen's second with 73.5. So he's got almost 10 points, 9 points better than the next best quarterback. He's had 3 top 5 games. So every game he's in the top 5 as far as quarterbacks. So you're definitely going to start him. Mahomes, he is 8th right now. No top 5 games, but he has had 2 top 12. But he is playing a defense that's been giving up a lot of points. So I would probably want to start him as well. Looking at the running backs, you're going to start Derrick Henry. I don't know how good I feel about it, honestly. He's 17th right now. He's had 1 top 12 game. And that's my worry, is the other games have been just so-so. I mean, his first game against the Bills, he looked incredible. You thought, okay, another big year. 18 carries, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. But since then, he's not looked anywhere near the same. Even against the Lions, he had 12 carries for 50 yards, 1 touchdown. But against the Browns, now the Browns have been incredible on defense. He looked horrible against the Browns. So you're going to start him. I just haven't been as impressed. They had a couple of plays on where he just needed a yard. He could not get it. I didn't like that. Now, for Kansas City, I'm not starting anybody. Pacheco, Hunt, they're not good. I mean, they're just so. You're not going to start the running backs for Kansas City. As far as wide receivers go, you do have Zay Flowers. And I'm always reluctant to start Zay Flowers. He's 15th ranked wide receiver. He's had 1 top 12 game because of the way Jackson throws the ball around. You don't know who's going to get it. It's the same goes for the tight end. 2 games with nothing, and then last week, huge game. But Zay Flowers, last week against the Lions, 3.3 fantasy points. He was only targeted 3 times. The first 2 games, 9 against targeted. He had 7 receptions for 9 targets against the Bills, 7 catches on 11 targets against the Browns. And then against the Lions, 2 receptions on 3 targets. I mean, 13 yards. What happened? It's crazy. I expect, though, I would start him, I think. I expect to see that change. I don't see 2 weeks of those types of numbers going into this game. Now, were they somebody you might pick up for Kansas City? He could pick up where he left off last year and be the guy that opens the game up a little bit for Kansas City and helps Mahomes out. Right now, you can still get Tyquan Thornton. He's the number 28. He's had one top 24 game. He's actually been better than Brown by just a little bit. Brown did have one top 12 game, but Thornton is actually just slightly better on fewer catches. He's only had 9 catches, but he has the same amount of yards. And so he's actually played a little better. You might see him take up a little more ground over Brown, who's number 29. So I think this is where Worthy can step in over these two guys and maybe pick up the slack that they've been leaving. Now, looking at the tight ends for these two teams, Travis Kelce is number 11 right now. He's had 2 top 12 weeks, so he's had 10 catches on 17 targets for 134 yards and a touchdown. He's dropped a couple, but he's still a target, and they're always looking for targets at Kansas City. It's been rough for them. So I do see that. Now, I do see him as somebody you could possibly start. Now, Mark Andrews is another story. This is what's frustrating. Again, it's the same thing with Zay Flowers, like I was saying. Mark Andrews, first 2 games, 1.5 and 1.4 points. That's all he got. Against the Lions, 27.1. He had 6 catches for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. The first 2 games, he only had 1 reception in each of them. 1 for 5 yards, 1 for 2. He was non-existent, and then he shows up big time. It's so frustrating if you're a fantasy guy. You say, I can't play him. And then when you don't play him, he has a huge number. So I don't know what to think. And with Likely maybe coming back, I don't know what to think there either. But I might start him. He looked pretty good, and if he's going to come back, he had a decent second half of last year, so you might want to start him. I'm going to pick the Baltimore Ravens to win this game, and I think they might win it fairly decently. Next game, Chicago Bears at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Chicago Bears lead this series 9-8. It is in Las Vegas, and the Raiders are favored by 1.5. These are 2 1-win, 2-loss teams. Looking at the Raiders, top 10, Max Crosby, the only guy in the top 10 we're looking at. He's tied for 4th all-time with Ike Lassiter with 61.5 sacks. Next up for him is Ben Davidson, who played in the 60s, early 70s, with 62. So he needs a half a sack to tie Ben Davidson for 3rd all-time. And 1 sack, he moves into 3rd all by himself. Greg Townsend played in the 80s and 90s, had 107.5 sacks. No key injuries for the Raiders. Chicago Bears, like I said, 1-2. Nothing to talk about. No top 10s. No key injuries for them either. Now, looking at this game, the Bears are averaging 25.3 points per game. That's pretty impressive. They have started to pick it up really well on offense, while the Raiders are averaging only 17.7 points per game. One issue more so for the Bears, and that's in penalties. They've been penalized 26 times, which is 23rd in the NFL. So that's an area that they're struggling. Looking at the offenses, for the Bears, they're number 10 in passing right now. Now, one of the games was against Dallas, which always will boost your numbers. But going into this game, the defense for the Raiders has not been good against the pass either. They're number 27, so it could be another good game for Caleb Williams. Now, in the running game, it's the flip-flop, that one right there. The Bears are 24th in rushing, and the Raiders' defense against the run is 8th. So definite advantage for the Raiders in that number. Now, looking at the offenses, right now, the Raiders are 15th in passing, and against another defense that's not that great, the Bears are 22nd against the pass. Looking at the running game for the Raiders. They're worst in the NFL, which is a shame. Honestly, with Gentry, they've got to figure out how to get him, give him some chances to run the ball. He is one of two running backs, I believe it is, who are being hit behind the line. They have a negative hit, however you want to say it, but he's been hit behind the line. Before he even gets to the line of scrimmage, he's already being touched by a defender. You can't expect anything too big out of him if he can't even get out of the backfield before he's being hit by some defender. But they're 32nd right now, but the Bears defense is 24th against the rush. So this is an opportunity for the Raiders to improve that running game. All right. Looking at some of the fantasy numbers here, as far as the quarterbacks go, Geno Smith has been good and then ugly, bad. He's 18th right now. He has had a top 5 week. And against a bad defense, he does have an opportunity. Last week against the Commanders, he had 24 points. But the week before against the Chargers, who granted are a very good defense, he only had 3.2 points. Against the Patriots, he had 17.5. So I would expect to see 20 points out of him. Not one of your best, but definitely somebody you might, if you need to start him, he might be worth it. Like I said, against that defense. Now, Caleb Williams, you're going to start. Right now, he's the number 3 quarterback in the NFL, only behind Jackson and Allen. He's had 1 top 5 and 2 top 12s. So he's really beginning to pick up Ben Johnson's offensive plans. And so we could see a high-scoring game here. So you might want to play both those quarterbacks. Looking at the running backs for these two teams. For the Raiders, I don't care, right now that Gentry hasn't looked good. I'm starting Gentry. This is the best opportunity he's had so far to get out there and excel. He's only had 1 top 24 game, but I think this is his opportunity to break out, and I would definitely start him. I would. You might not want to because you're reluctant, but it is his 4th game as a rookie, and they've been trying to figure out his new offense, and hopefully this is a game they do it. Now for the Bears, Swift has been the guy, but he's not been great. He has had 2 top 24 weeks. He's number 24 running back, though. Only has 149 yards and 1 touchdown. He's only averaging 3.5 yards a carry. If you had to play him, you might. But the defense for the Raiders is pretty good against the run. So he's somebody, if I had other options, I probably would take them. Looking at the wide receivers in this game, for the Bears, Romeo Dunze's right now number 4 wide receiver. You're definitely going to start him. He's really looked good this year so far. He's been in the top 24 every week and in the top 12 one time. So he's been fairly consistent. Definitely you want to start him. And for the Raiders, I don't know if I want to start anybody or not. Jacoby Myers is the guy. He's number 23 right now. So he'd be my second wide receiver or flex guy. He's got 1 top 24 game. He has been targeted a decent amount of times, 26, but only 17 catches on 26 targets for 228 yards. So I would start him. He hasn't had a touchdown yet, so there's something you might see changed in this game. Like I said, the Chicago Bears defense is not that good. So Myers, I probably would start in a flex spot for sure. Now, looking at the tight ends in this game, well, you're obviously going to start Brock Bowers no matter what. He hasn't had a really super start yet. He has had 1 top 5 game, but you can't bench him. And he's only had 14 receptions so far. I think that's going to change. He hasn't been targeted nearly as much as some of the other tight ends have. I mean, for example, Jake Ferguson for Dallas has been targeted 32 times already. So Brock Bowers is in the middle of the pack, slightly above middle of the pack as far as being targeted. And he has no touchdowns either. So I expect to see a much better game out of him this week. And then for the Bears, as far as the tight end goes, you got Cole Kmet. He's number 27. He's only had 4 catches, 70 yards, though, and a touchdown. That's just a hope and a prayer if you pick him up. I don't think I'd start him. So looking at this game, I am going to pick the Raiders to win this game. I think they have a good shot at it. The defense for the Bears is not good. This is a great game. The Raiders are playing at home. A great game for them to get their act together. And I think their defense is good enough to keep them in the game as well. All right, looking at the Sunday night game, the Green Bay Packers at the Dallas Cowboys. The Green Bay Packers lead this series 22-17. And they are favored by 6.5 points, even though it's at Dallas. So Dallas is just going downhill. With the defensive players they've let go, just crazy. And then this week with CeeDee Lamb. Looking at the Dallas Cowboys, they have no top 10s to look at. And like I said, CeeDee Lamb is probably going to be out. They haven't confirmed it yet, at least at this point, but could be out 3 to 4 weeks. Another just bad situation for the Cowboys. Cowboys are 1-2. Green Bay is 2 wins, 1 loss. Top 10s for them. The only one right now, and that's Jordan Love. He's 7th all-time in touchdown passes with 65. Arnie Herber, who played from 1930 to 1940, quite a ways ago. 66 touchdown passes. So Jordan Love needs 1 to tie, 2 to move into 6th all-time for that team. And clearly it's Aaron Rodgers, who's number 1 with 475 passing touchdowns. No key injuries for the Green Bay Packers. So looking at this game, believe it or not, the Cowboys are averaging 24.7 points a game. That's 10th best, which is even better than Green Bay. Now, you have to look, it's only 3 games, and you have to look at the teams they've played. Cowboys had a shootout against the Giants, which racketed their numbers up somewhat. Cowboys then had a game against the Cleveland Browns, which shot their number down, but they're averaging 21.3 points a game. I think you're going to see this number shift. One of the problems for the Packers is they're 28th in penalties. They've had 28 penalties as well. So they're averaging over 9 penalties a game. They need to correct that. Now, looking at some of the numbers, passing efficiency for the Green Bay Packers is 6th in the NFL, while the defense of Dallas is 31st. So that's a big plus. In the running game, now Green Bay is only 21 in rushing, but again, they played Cleveland in one of those 3 games. The defense for the Cowboys is 21st in rushing defense, so not very good there either. So I expect this to be definitely a good game offensively for Green Bay. Now looking at Dallas Cowboys, they are 12th in passing offense, but they're going against the number 5 passing defense. And now they're doing it without CeeDee Lamb. On the ground, this is a surprise, but Williams has been pretty good. They're 9th in rushing offense, but they're going against the 6th best rushing defense. So you're going against a very good Green Bay defense and a fairly decent offense of Green Bay. So looking at this from a fantasy aspect, looking at the quarterbacks, anyone that you might want to start. Well, Dak Prescott, I don't know if you want to start him or not. I probably wouldn't start him. Right now he's 21st. He has had one top 12 week, but now without CeeDee Lamb, I don't think I'm starting him. As far as Jordan Love goes, he's 13th right now. He's also had one top 12, game. And I expect to see a big game out of him. I probably would start him if you had the opportunity. Now, looking at the running backs for these two teams, probably going to start them both. at least I'm going to start the Green Bay running back. He had a bad game last week, but I expect to see improvement. Josh Jacobs, he's been in the top 24 every week. So he's had decent games. Now, he's only at rushing for 3.1 yards a carry. But like I said, when you look at, let me just look at that. He's had basically 14, averaging 13, a little over 13 points a game, averaging, because he even had 12.4 against the Browns. But he had 16 carries for 30 yards. That's going to kill your average. Though he has only averaged 3.6 in the other two games. But the games have been against the Lions, the Commanders, and the Browns. So you got two playoff teams and then one with a super good defense. So a tough lead in for Josh Jacobs. I expect him to have a pretty good game this week. I'm going to start him. And for the Cowboys, if it wasn't against this defense, Williams has looked pretty good so far this year. In fact, he's number 7th right now, number 7. And he's been in the top 12 2 times and in the top 24 3. So he's had good games so far. I think I would start him. He's averaging over 5 yards a carry. And I think now with CeeDee Lamb, I think they'll even try to count on him even more if they can get away with it, and maybe even catching some passes out of the backfield. So I think he could have a decent game going into this game. Now, looking at the wide receivers for these two teams, like I said before, and I'll always say it, Green Bay is one of those teams where I don't like any of the wide receivers because you don't know who they're going to throw the ball to. If you want to take a long shot, Matthew Golden might be a guy to play for Green Bay. But I don't like the way they do their passing game. As far as fantasy goes, obviously they don't care anything about fantasy, but when you're trying to figure out who you want to start, it just makes it difficult to pick a Packer. Romeo Doubs, no top 12 games. He's 56th ranked. But I think Golden will be the guy. I really do think ultimately he will be the guy that will start to stand out. So whether you want to start him this week, this would be a week to start him against the Dallas defense. And he's somebody you can pick up. So if you're looking for somebody to take a shot on and you need to maybe hopefully scramble for some points, that could be a player that might do it for you. Now, as far as the Cowboys go, Pickens now will be the guy. And I probably would start him at least as my second wide receiver or my flex guy. Nothing more than that. But I think you'll see more passes, obviously, in his direction now that CeeDee Lamb is going to go there. But can he be the number one guy, and take on that role? We'll see. But that's what he's going to have to do. All right. So I might start him. But nothing more than my flex or second wide receiver or third, depending on how your teams are set up. Now, as far as tight ends, you definitely want to start the Cowboys' Jake Ferguson, who's now number 2 tight end. Actually, he's number 1 if you don't count the Thursday night game. Going into this week, Jake Ferguson's the number 1 tight end with 45 points. He had a huge game. He's had 2 top 5 games already in the first 3. And now with CeeDee Lamb out, I expect to see that more. He's been targeted more than any other tight end currently. 32 targets, 27 receptions for 183 yards. He does not have a touchdown yet. So he's racking up these numbers without touchdowns. So you're going to start Jake Ferguson for sure. Now for Green Bay, you're also going to start Tucker Kraft. He's had 1 top 5 himself. He's got 40 points a game. 40 fantasy points, 45 for Ferguson. So these are 2 tight ends you want to start. He's not been targeted nearly as many times, but he's got 2 touchdowns and almost the same amount of yards. So only 11 receptions to Ferguson's 27. but they almost have the same yardage, and he has 2 touchdowns to 0 for Ferguson. So it's a little different how they're used. Tucker Kraft is getting out there farther out in the field on some of these passes. All right, well, I'm going to pick the Green Bay Packers. There's no sense to even think that Dallas wins this game. It'd be quite an upset. I mean, it was upset, obviously, when Green Bay lost to Cleveland, so I don't see that happening again. I think they'll try to do their best to crush Dallas. All right, this week there's 2 Monday night games. The first one is the New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins. There's probably 2 games because they don't want a complete dud on Monday night. And the Jets in Miami, we've got 2 teams that are 0-3. That's a horrific game. Now, obviously, they didn't expect that going in when they scheduled it, but 2 teams that are 0-3. Well, the best you can say is that one of them is going to have a win after this game. Miami Dolphins lead this series 61 games to 57 and 1 tie. It is being played in Miami, and they are favored by 2.5 points over the Jets. So looking at the Dolphins, they're 0-3, like I said. Mike Daniels continues to try to tie Tony Sparano for 4th all-time in coaches' wins with 29. He's been sitting on 28 since the beginning of the season, still trying to get that number 29. Better get it soon, or he may not have the opportunity anymore, if you catch my drift on that. Looking at some other top 10s, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are number 9 and 10. Hill's number 9, Waddle's number 10, all-time in receptions for the Miami Dolphins. Number 8 is Devontae Parker with 338. Tyreek Hill has 334. So he only needs 4 to tie, 5 to move into 8th all-time by himself. Now, Jalen Waddle is 10th. He has 323. I just mentioned him because they are both in the top 10. I don't expect to see him catch either Hill or Parker this week. Maybe next week he'll move up past Parker as well. Mark Clayton leads this all time with 550 receptions. Now, when it comes to the yards, Mark Duper leads this team with 8,869 receiving yards. Number 7 is Devontae Parker. So Tyreek Hill is trying to catch Devontae Parker for 7th. Tyreek Hill has 4,666 yards. He needs 61 yards in this game to tie Devontae Parker. 62 yards would put him into 7th all-time by himself. That's a definite possibility in this game. No key injuries for the Dolphins. Looking at the Jets, nothing to say here. Sadly to say. Now, looking at key injuries for that, no top 10s, I should say. Key injuries. Justin Fields has a concussion, but if he passes the protocol, he was out last week, but if he does pass the protocol, he will start, according to the coach. All right, let's look at this game here. The Jets have not been that bad as far as points per game. They've averaged 23 points a game. The Dolphins, 18.7. So they equally on total penalties. They both have had 19 total penalties. Now, looking at the offenses, the offense for the Jets, they're 20th in passing against the worst passing defense in the NFL for the Dolphins. So that's a positive. Running game for the Jets, they're number 22 against the number 29 rushing defense. So the Dolphins defense is not good at all, which is something helpful for the Jets, whose offense is in the bottom third as well, but against an even worse defense. Now, looking at the offense for the Dolphins, they're 22 in passing against the 26th ranked passing defense of the Jets. So, again, a category where this game could see some points scored. In the running game, this is where Miami's been a little better. They're number 15 right now against the number 18 rushing defense of the Jets. So overall, neither team's defense is that great. Jets are a little bit better. You would have thought, I actually thought they would have been even better than they are, especially against the pass. And then neither offense is that great either, which explains why neither team has a win. So, do you want to start anybody in this game if you have a fantasy team? As far as quarterbacks, no. I mean, you might want to start Justin Fields because Justin Fields can rack up some yards with his legs. So he's somebody you can pick up as well. And if you do need a quarterback, you're just going to have to watch to see if he plays. The bad thing is this is a Monday night game, so unless they say something like Sunday morning, you're not going to want to try to play him. It's too late. You'd be stuck. Unless you also have Tyrod Taylor, then of course you could play either one. And I think either one will do good, have a decent game against the Dolphins. So either one of those you're going to be able to pick up without a problem. I mean, Justin Fields has had one top 5 game. Obviously, he only played one full game. So, and then he was knocked out of the second game against the Bills. So if he comes back and plays, he's already, like I said, he had 29.5 games, 29.5 points against the Steelers. A really good game. He had 218 passing yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, and he rushed the ball 48 yards with 2 touchdowns. So if you do have the opportunity, Fields would be somebody you would want to play. But like I said, you're just not going to know right away. If you have the room to put him on your bench, but still you can't, it's too difficult. Tyrod Taylor's number 29. He did have a top 12 game last week. So he hasn't looked too bad. He's got 69 rushing yards himself, and he did pass for 253 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I think against the Dolphins, this is an opportunity if you're really looking for something that you could play either one of them. So Tyrod Taylor against the Buccaneers last week had 16.7 points. I was wrong on that yardage, but because he only had 197 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I don't know what I was looking at the wrong number there, but still not bad. That's total yards, 253 total yards. All right. So that's a gamble you're taking if you play Fields or Taylor. But if Fields is definitely an opportunity. Now looking at and I'm not going to start Tua. Tua's just he doesn't do anything with his legs, and it's all with his arm. And right now he's number 25. He hasn't even had a top 12 game yet on his first 3 games, so you can't count on him at this point in time. Looking at the running games for these 2 teams, do you want to start anybody here? This is when you have 2 teams like this. Who would you start? And you probably do have to start A-Chain for Miami. He's number 6 right now, and he actually has been the bright spot for the Miami Dolphins. 3 top 12 games already. He's only got 147 rushing yards, but it's been out of the backfield that he's been so good. So you're going to start him. Now for the Jets, Breece Hall, I don't know what to think. He had a really good game. His first game out, he's number 26th. He had 16.5 points against the Steelers. Had 19 carries, 107 yards. Well, since then, he's totaled 19 carries for only 50 yards. So it's been a complete flip for him. He hasn't had any rushing touchdowns yet. Is he going to have a decent game? I don't know. It's so hard to tell what his situation is. So I don't think I'm going to start him unless I have to. Now, obviously, Miami's defense hasn't been that great, so it is an opportunity maybe for Breece Hall to come back and have a game much closer to his first game. So that's an up-in-the-air kind of guy. Now, for wide receivers, Garrett Wilson, going to start him. He's had 2 top 12s already, and against this Miami defense, he should have a good game. I'm definitely going to start him. Now, for Miami, that's probably the only Jet I'm going to start for sure. For Miami Dolphins, Well, Tyreek Hill did have a better game last week, and Jalen Waddle is another one. And, do I want to start either one of these guys? I don't know. It's, let me see where they are. They're so close to each other. Tyreek Hill right now is number 22 wide receiver. He's had 2 top 24 games so far. And then Jalen Waddle is number 24 wide receiver. He's also had 2 top 24 games. So they're basically fairly even. Tyreek Hill has 198 yards on 15 receptions, and he has 1 touchdown. Now, Waddle has 1 less reception, but for a lot less yards, 137 yards, but he does have 2 touchdowns. So, I don't know. If you want to start one of them, I guess you might start Hill. You can pick up Waddle almost pretty easy. So in a lot of leagues, you can pick him up. So if you do need a wide receiver, Hill's probably not going to be available. Waddle he might be somebody you want to start because the defense for the Jets hasn't been playing that well. All right, looking at the tight ends for these 2 teams. Probably not going to start either one of these guys either. They're not impressive at all. So tight ends, I'm not starting either one. All right, looking at this game, it is in Miami. I don't know what to think. This is a tough one. I want to say Miami. I just think overall they have a better team. I mean, offensively at least. But then I think the Jets, with a new coach, could just punch Miami in the face and take the game away. And they do have a decent game. If Fields plays, I definitely think the Jets have a good chance to win. But I'm going to pick, I don't know. It's so hard. I'm going to pick Miami simply because it's in Miami. That's the best I can do with that. All right, last game, Cincinnati Bengals at the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos lead this series 22 games to 12. This is in Denver, and Denver's favored by 7.5 points. So they're not impressed. The odds makers are not impressed with Cincinnati's 2-1 record, I guess. Denver Broncos are 1-2. Now, looking at top tens for this game for the Denver Broncos, Sean Payton is tied for 8th all-time in victories. In wins for the Denver Broncos with 19, he needs 1 to tie Lou Saban for 7th all-time for the Broncos. Mike Shanahan's way out there with 138. Looking at other top tens, this is Courtland Sutton. Right now, he's number 9 all-time in receptions with 392. He needs 4 to tie Riley Odoms for 8th. Riley Odoms played in the 70s and early 80s. He has 396. So 4 to tie Odoms, 5 to move into 8th all by himself. Rod Smith, who played from 1995 to 2006, has 849 receptions. And Courtland Sutton again in receiving touchdowns. He's 10th all-time. Steve Watson, who played late 70s and the 80s, has 36 receiving touchdowns. Courtland Sutton has 34. So he needs 2 to tie Watson for 9th, 3 to move into 9th all by himself. If he gets 3, I think Cincinnati does not win this game. I think Denver easily wins if Courtland Sutton was to get 3 touchdowns. Looking at key injuries, Evan Ingram's been back. He had a back issue. He's back to play. He should be playing this week. Now, what that means as far as how he's used, I don't know. We'll talk about that when we get there. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals are 2-1. And looking at top tens for them right now, Jake Browning is tied for 10th all-time in passing TDs for the Cincinnati Bengals with 14. I'm sorry, actually, he's tied for 10th with 15th with Neil O'Donnell and Greg Cook. He needs 1 to move into a tie with David Klingler, who played in the 90s. He has 16 passing TDs. So 1 to tie, 2 to move into 9th all by himself. Looking at other top tens, Jamar Chase is number 8, tied for 7th all-time in receptions for the Cincinnati Bengals with 416. He only needs 1 to tie Chris Collinsworth for 6th, 2 to pass him. So he'll definitely move into 6th all-time in receptions for the Cincinnati Bengals. Chad Johnson's has 751. He played in the early 2000s. Jamar Chase again. This time he's 10th, chasing down number 9, TJ Houshmandzadeh, who played in the early 2000s. He's got 5,782 yards. So Jamar Chase is going to need a decent game. He needs 116 yards in this game to tie TJ Houshmandzadeh for 9th all-time. He's halfway on his path, Chase is, to catch Chad Johnson, who's number 1 all-time with 10,783 yards. That was probably a pretty decent game, passing game for the Bengals back from 2001 to 2010, because you had both Johnson and TJ Houshmandzadeh on the field at the same time for most of that time period. And looking again at another number here, this time it's T. Higgins. He's trying to catch Darnay Scott for 8th. Right now, T. Higgins has 35 touchdowns. Chris Collinsworth and Darnay Scott have 36. So he needs 1 to tie those 2 players for 8th. If he happened to get 2 touchdown receptions, he'd tie TJ Houshmandzadeh for 7th with 37 touchdowns. So he's looking at the top 10 there as well. A couple more numbers for the Cincinnati Bengals, a couple more top 10s. Trey Hendrickson is tied for 4th all-time with 55 tackles for loss with Justin Smith and Sam Hubbard. Sam Hubbard was with the team last year. So 1 more tackle for loss, and he moves into 4th all by himself. Carlos Dunlap has 103 tackles for loss. In the sack department, Trey Hendrickson again. He's looking at Ross Browner in number 5 spot. He needs 1.5 sacks to tie Ross Browner for, actually he needs 2.5 sacks to tie Ross Browner for 5th all-time. So that's asking a lot. Not that he can't do it. He's done it before. But Trey Hendrickson needs 2.5 sacks to move into 5th all-time, a tie for 5th all-time in sacks for the Cincinnati Bengals. Eddie Edwards played in the late 70s and most of the 80s, had 84.5 sacks. So he's pushing closer and closer to that. Now, whether he's with the team next year will be interesting. Now, as we've talked about, quarterback Joe Burrow is out with a toe injury, and he is out at least 12 weeks. So that's tough. And tight end Noah Fant had a concussion. He's undergoing protocol. So at this point, he's not going to play, but we don't know yet if he will or not. All right, let's look at this game. Cincinnati's averaging 19.3 points a game. The Broncos are averaging 22.7. Broncos have an issue with penalties. They've had 24 already, so that's 8 penalties a game. While the Bengals are first as far as fewest penalties with only 14 in 3 games, so that's less than 5 penalties a game. Makes a difference as far as that goes. Now, looking at the offenses, well, the Bengals offense, 32nd, worst in the NFL in passing efficiency, going up against the 13th best defense against the pass, which honestly I thought would be even better than that. But they should see their numbers improve against Browning. When it comes to the rushing game for the Bengals, 31st as far as rushing goes against the number 10 pass rushing defense. So again, and this is probably why, despite the fact that the Bengals have 2 wins and 1 loss, they're expected to lose by 7.5. Looking at the offense for the Broncos, number 19 in the passing game against the number 18 defense. So fairly even there. But their running game is number 14 against the number 20 rushing defense. So better numbers there. And actually, the Bengals defense, as bad as it has been, isn't quite as bad as might be expected. But it's going to be a tough game. Every game, I think, is going to be tough for them, when you don't have Burrow as your quarterback. All right, let's look at some of the fantasy numbers. And do you want to start anybody in this game? Looking at the quarterbacks, well, obviously, you're not starting Browning. You just can't. He's terrible, and I don't expect to see much out of him. Now, do you want to start Bo Nix? He's number 20 right now. He's had one top 12 game. This could be a game where he does break out. He just needs to improve his TD, touchdowns to interception ratio. He's 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He has run the ball for 71 yards so far. No touchdowns, though. So I do expect to see Bo Nix. And if you need a quarterback, he may be a surprise because Kansas City just looks terrible right now. So he could have a pretty good game. All right, let's look at the running backs for these two teams. It's very disappointing. Brown, as far as fantasy goes, he was picked quite early, probably in the first 3 rounds, probably around the 3rd round at the worst. Chase Brown, that is. But he's the number 31 running back. He's got one top 24 game. I do think they're going to keep trying to get him the ball as best they can. They just don't have many options otherwise. So I think he'll catch some passes out of the backfield as well. And so he's somebody you can pick him up now. I think teams are beginning to drop him, and maybe they're dropping him too early based on this part of the game. But I think the Browns are going to have to readjust their offense, and I think that gives him a chance to maybe have a better game than he's had so far. But we'll see. Now, as far as the Denver goes, you're going to start J.K. Dobbins most likely. He's been in the top 24 every week. Maybe not the top 12, but he has been in the top 24 every week. He's averaging 5.4 yards a game. He's already got 3 touchdowns. So he's somebody you're going to want to start. And probably the only running back right now you're going to start for that team. All right, looking at the wide receivers so far this season. Courtland Sutton, probably going to start for sure against this defense. He's number 18 right now, but he has had 2 top 12s. He had one bad game, really bad game actually, but he is their leading receiver, 13 receptions for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that's deceptive because against the Colts, I don't know what happened there. He had 1 catch for 6 yards in that game. The other 2 games, he's had 6 receptions in both of the games and touchdowns. So he is their number 1 receiver minus whatever happened against the Colts. So Courtland Sutton's somebody I'm probably going to start. Looking at the rest of these players, well, obviously you got to start Chase. You hate to do it. He's number 11 right now, but he has had a top 12. But he's one of the best receivers in the NFL, and he's being targeted. He's got 27 targets, 21 receptions, so he's definitely getting the ball. He's got 241 yards and a touchdown. So you're definitely going to start Chase. Now, do you want to start Higgins? That's the question. Probably not. He's kind of dropped off the map here just because of the quarterback situation. So I just don't think you can start Chase, right? I mean, T. Higgins, that is. Right now, he's number 61 wide receiver. He's got 7 catches for 104 yards and a touchdown. He's only been targeted 14 times, half the times basically that Chase is. I think Browning's just looking for Chase, and if not, he's not looking at Higgins too much. That could change, but I definitely am not going to start Higgins anymore this season, at least for a while. Now, looking at the tight ends for these two teams, like I said, Ingram is coming back. I'm not starting him. I thought he would be even better than he is, but so far it hasn't been anything exciting. Drew Sample for the Bengals has had 1 top 24 game, make that actually 1 top 12 game. So he's had 1 top 12 game, but he's only had 3 catches for 27 yards and a touchdown. Now, Noah Fant probably isn't going to play, so Sample could have a better game. I mean, Noah Fant was the number 18 tight end. He's got 1 top 12 game. So Drew Sample could take all his catches as well. And I think Browning will be dumping it off if he can't find Chase. He's not looking for Higgins. He's looking for Chase first and either the tight end or the running back second, pretty much. So he could be a one. You can definitely pick Sample up probably almost in every single league. And if you need a tight end, he's somebody to grab. All right, I am picking the Denver Broncos to win this game, whether they do by what the odds makers say or not. I just think the Denver Broncos are going to win this game pretty handily. All right, that is a wrap for these games. Look forward to watching them. We've got some big games between teams with no wins, teams with wins, and then like the Ravens-Chiefs game where they 1-2 each. That'll be a fun game to see who comes out of that 2-2. All right. Appreciate you listening. Please like and subscribe on Yahoo. You can find me at Just the Stats NFL. Also on most every podcast site, Apple, Spotify, whichever one you use. You can email me at justthestatsnfl@gmail.com or post a message on YouTube or wherever you catch your podcast. Again, I appreciate you listening. Enjoy football this weekend. And that is a wrap for this episode of Just the Stats. I'm out.